to us, and a lot of things stay in people's mind, was a poem from Thomas Hardy, which would say, it's a very long poem, which, many of which I've memorized and I can still remember. But this verse was, full many a gem of purest ray serene, the dark unfathomed caves of ocean bare, full many a flower is born to blush unseen and waste its sweetness in the desert air. I'd never been into a cave, I'd never been into a desert, I didn't know what it all meant. But one thing he would say is, in his Palghat Tamil, it's something I share with Mr. Seshan, he'd say, you can be anything you want to be. Enna vanunalum pannalam kattiya. In some corner of my mind, this record's played for my whole life. This record played when my uncle said to me, you're not going to get into IIM Ahmedabad, it's like winning a Nobel Prize. And then I went and spoke to my grandfather. He said, oh, you can do what you want to do. And the confidence that you get in something like that is very, very strong. So that record plays very, very heavily certain times. That record played when I walked into New York with $24 in my pocket. I didn't know how to dress. I didn't know how to speak American. Now we are a connected world. We have a world where the internet tells you on YouTube, you can actually see what America was like. This, I'm talking of 1975. 1978, we just, I was wearing open-toed shoes in the middle of an icy New York City winter, going into McKinsey & Company, which was the bluest of the blue chip firms. And I walked out 20 interviews later with the highest paying associate job McKinsey had ever given. And it was an enormous amount of luck, but it was an enormously strong record playing in my head because I didn't know what I couldn't do. I didn't even entertain the thought. Now when I think about it sometimes, I think, was I that foolish? And I think that's an opportunity for all of you. But sometimes that record plays very, very softly. I had a major situation when I had to restructure my entire company. It looked like I was going to lose everything. We had, for a variety of reasons, we had to restructure the company. We had to, our profits were going to be down by 90%. It was a very big set of decisions. And at that time, you feel you lose your confidence, but that record plays somewhere, somehow, that record plays and says, you can come back. And, after the age of 50, when I really try to go back and be a musician, and can you imagine the whole world knows you as a businesswoman, that record still plays again. Softly, and then it sort of comes out. So the gift I would give you is one of an unbounded mind, a mind that just stays the course. I mean, you're in a globalizing world. Things are going to be changing. Things are going to be going on. There's a lot of stuff I can tell you because I do lectures on this all the time, but that's not that important. To me, the focus on having this absolute clarity and the sense of who you are, I think is really critical. And by the way, this doesn't come without Herculean effort. I can talk about the hours. We can say, oh, I sort of went to McKinsey or I did this. And I'm sure this is true of anybody who's accomplished anything. Mr. Seshan spoke about 6 a.m. in the morning, driving buses from 6 to many hours in the day. I would fly. I mean, we talk of jetting around to different countries. But let me tell you, one of my schedules, and this is just an example, I was doing a mega restructuring in Brisbane. New York to Brisbane is a 32-hour flight. By the time you go from New York to San Francisco to Sydney, Sydney to Brisbane. And I had a little child at that time. I would get on the plane for 32 hours, and by the way, the time zones were literally 14 hours apart. And all night, I had a video conference set up between Brisbane and my home in New York. So in the night, I would talk to my child. I would set up her play dates and talk to other people and set up play dates. And I would fly back a week later and then do that in reverse again. I would stay at home or work in the office in New York and have conferences, video conferences with my team in Australia. This was not, this is not for the faint-hearted. I met a young guy the other day, actually from one of the universities, and he said to me, oh God, I don't know how you did it. I don't think I could. I couldn't either. It's a choice we make at every point in time. And I would say, my hope is that you will make the choice. Every leader, and I've worked with some of the best in the world, every big name, bold-faced name you read about, many of them I've worked with. I call many of them my friends. They are disciplined and intensive to the degree that you cannot believe. other gift, the second gift I would give you is a gift of compassion. Whether it's your business, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends, there are a lot of people in this world that aren't as smart as you are, aren't as hardworking as you are, aren't as brilliant as you are, and whether they are or not, we always think that. And all of us, and I think the best institutions, whether it's a college, whether it's a university, or whether it's a company, are companies that have a core of compassion in them somewhere and somehow. And karma is alive and well. You know, my entire company was built because of a small act of compassion that I showed, not really thinking, oh, there I'm being compassionate, because it came back to really pay me back. You know, I had a client called Bruce Wheeler. He was writing a presentation to the board. It was a very, very important presentation, and he was on the line to go in and really present something. I was on my way. I was taking a flight to India that evening, and I looked at his presentation at 5 o'clock before my flight was about to be taken, and I looked at the work he'd done, and I knew he would get killed if he went into his board with this, because it was, for a variety of reasons, it was a wrong message at the wrong time, and nobody would. I changed my flight. It was God knows what made me do it. I changed my flight, worked with him through the entire weekend, the whole presentation, and I'm giving you a very small example to make the point, but there's many cases like this. And he did it. It went well. 7 years later, my company, I was just starting my company. I had the shingles up, waiting for business. My last bit of savings had been put into this company, and nobody was knocking on the door. I was down to my last few $1,000s, and if we were counting days. I had a calendar. I would tear off the sheets, and I knew if we had another 7 or 8 days, the company would fall. I didn't have any more cash flow because we put all our savings in it. The chairman of one of the largest banks, this is the bank where the stock was $2. He calls me up. It's unheard of for the chairman of a bank. He didn't even know I existed. It just happened that this guy I helped 5 or 7 years ago was interviewing for a job with this guy who was going through a mega restructuring. And Bruce said to this chairman, don't ever touch a restructuring until you've spoken to her. She'll make it work for you. My company was built on karma. And a lot of what I do now is I try to pay it forward as much as I can. It's not the same person coming back to you in the same way, but it comes back, and what goes around comes around. And I tell chairman, and this is true for whatever you do in whichever business angle that you work with, treat people well. There is nothing to be gotten from not treating people well. Even if you're letting people go in a company, people who are lesser than you. And I have this dream for college too, that we will ultimately be the institution where some of the best, but the people that cannot pay for their education can actually come here and be part of this college. And that it's not because of compassion, but because we really want to extend ourselves way beyond what we are capable of. And the final gift I would say to you, which really is based on my experience, is that really develop a deep connection with yourself. You know, we have this expression called a tiger cub, you know. So my whole life, I was a tiger student. They write all these stories about accounting. I did this in school, in college, less in Ahmedabad, but I did it for most of my time. I was a tiger associate. I was a tiger partner. I was a tiger mom. I was a tiger daughter. I worked so hard. But I was very single-focused. And life is not about a single focus. Life is about juggling multiple balls well. And in fact, if you don't get into multiple dimensions of yourself, and you begin to know what are all the pieces that make you happy, you've one life to live. Maybe you'll come back, depending on what you believe on reincarnation, maybe you'll come back many lifetimes from now. But in this memory, this is the only life you have left. And it's so easy to not stretch yourself out of the zone of comfort. Particularly, I mean, I work with many groups of people in there, and this is not necessarily for you younger people who are current students, but it's for anybody who's over 30, 40. They all struggle because, you know, you've started out being a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, a civil servant, whatever, and then you want to really think about what is it that I want to do? What makes me happy? And I really feel, for me, it was an extraordinarily difficult thing to do. but an extraordinary learning. To know that what mattered to me, whether it was my music, whether it was that the happiest moments of my life had to do with music, and then to go back and re-engineer my whole life to reflect what made me happy. And then to go back and to work with the university at NYU without any regard for what it is I would get. Because when I started working there, I was literally an executive in residence, just free. I gave my time. I was there. I just was there 3 days a week. Next thing I knew, I'm now at the university, in so many parts of the university, with a very, very strong leadership role. And I think to myself, were I living in India, MCC couldn't keep me away, nor could IIM Ahmedabad. And one of my hopes and prayers for the institution and for the alumni is that we will have a lot more engagement, that we will really have engagement with the students. I mean, wouldn't you students like to have engagement with the alumni? Yes? No? Yes. So, and I just think there's tremendous opportunities for connection beyond just money. And I think money helps too. So let's not kid ourselves. You know, the world doesn't go around without it. So that too, but it needs a lot more. I think at the end of the day, we are all a very privileged group of people. And I think we need to dare to dream. We need to dare to sort of build the castles in the air and fill in the foundations later. As MCC, as students of MCC, we have the opportunity to do that. So God bless, and I really just wish the best. I'm so proud to be here. And I'm so proud to be part of this great college. And I just want to say I feel connected to every one of you who has anything to do with MCC in any which way, because we all belong together. Thank you so much.
Mr. Selvaraj, could you please come up? And there will be a very brief question-answer session moderated by Dr. Selvaraj, our secretary.
Dignitaries on the stage, ladies and gentlemen, you have just heard two eminent alumni, both of them representing two different periods, but their work is common, that is one of restructuring. While Mr. Seshan has worked very hard to restructure and recalibrate our electoral system, Mrs. Chandrika has worked herself in the area of finance. One of the intriguing aspects for non-MCC students is that they always ask me the question, what is the secret behind this bonding between the alumni of MCC and the institution, which you hardly come across in other institutions? When we get together, we always speak about our halls, our college life, and sometimes it makes the non-participant feel out of place. This chemistry is very intriguing for others, but we in the MCC know that it is this foundation or the basic ethos in the college is what makes MCT to face all challenges. Therefore, I think many of you would be curious to interact with Mr. Seshan and Mrs. Chandrika on several points, but I'm thankful to those who have given some questions. Due to the limited nature of time, I would just select few questions which are representative of your queries and request Mr. Seshan and Ms. Chandrika to respond to this. I think one common question to both of you would be, they want to know what is the motivating element in your life and career. And Chandrika's speech has answered many of the questions, but some students are wanting to know how you have been able to overcome the conservative culture, which you have very effectively answered, but if you can explain a little more, how you could overcome this tradition and emerge as a Renaissance woman. And sir, you, Mr. Seshan, who has motivated you in the college when you were in the college? And what are the things that were very positive to your worldview as compared to the present times?
That's a tall order to try and answer that question. What motivated you was the conservative upbringing which we all had. We lived on conservatism. I was brought up on conservatism. Both of us come from the same small town in Kerala called Palghat. I used to say in my lectures when I was Chief Election Commissioner that I belong to a community called the Palghat Brahmin, who consists of 4 things. They consist of cooks, crooks, civil servants and musicians. So, hard work, conservatism. Somewhere in the presentation they mentioned that I used to have only 2 mottos during nearly 40-45 years in public life. 0 delay, 0 defect. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else. I don't know whether it answers your question. Conservatism plus the unwillingness to put up. We come from a culture which we don't realize what our culture is. Doesn't matter 2 hoots, whether you're a Hindu, you're a Christian or a Muslim. The only culture in the world which has survived and grown on the basis of, there's a little shloka in the Bhagavad Gita which permit me to quote, which says, Sudharmama pichaveksha navikampitum sudharme nidanam shreya paradharmo bhayavaha. To do your duty is the greatest dharma. It is not Hindu religion. It is true of Christians, it is true of Muslims, it is true even of an atheist, that if he will do his dharma, he will achieve. That is what is my opinion.
So, thank you, sir, for answering this. This conservative culture is not the real constraint. Culture also has its own motivation. So, Mrs. Chandrika, would you like to answer your motive? Yes. I think you, okay. Okay. Mr. Seshan, do you really think India can reach status by 2020 in spite of many scams and drawbacks? This is Mr. Raghuveer of 3rd BCom.
The answer is in what Chandrika told you should be the basis of your existence. Just write all over your room, or your house, your place of work, we can and we will.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
People who have succeeded to the extent to which Chandrika has succeeded are people who have written everywhere in their mind. If she closes her eyes, she says, I can.
Okay.
Yes, we can. Okay. Today, the young people of India constitute a tremendous force for us to reach the top. The older people like me are responsible for the mess in which we are. The older people are all responsible for the mess. The young people will take it off. How much have we done to mess up the education system? You ask all these people who are running education institutions, they will tell you, you have done everything possible to mess up the education system. The syllabus, the teachers, the English. We learned English a very hard way from Wren and Martin. You abolished Wren and Martin, and today look at the SMS English which our children are working with. You know SMS English? LOL. Therefore, my answer is that if our young people make up their mind that we can, and they are doing it, they are ignoring all the scams which are taking place all over the place.